We have experts joining us today on the broadcast as well, Professor.
Around so that
yes, we are just looking around so that because this is an exclusion zone, no one is supposed to be here, and I would also request you to please move out of the zone because EDIFICE has advised us not to let anyone inside.
By what time the residents will be allowed?
We are still speculating. We are estimating what the time is.
Sir, ये blast है वो बिल्कुल copybook का. So there you see Abhishek Verma, the DCP of this zone, was telling us regarding the status of update.
Okay, all right. So that was the word from the DCP. Now traffic also being cleared. Remember, a lot of vehicular movement from the area had also been halted completely. We have guests joining us on the broadcast. Dr. Anil Gupta, Head of Environment and Climatic Disaster Management. Vipul Ahuja, Structural Engineer and Director, Ahuja Consultants. Rajiv Nehru, Market Lead, Asia Pacific. And also Manish Kumar, Senior VP of NEFOWA. Let me first go across to Dr. Anil Gupta. Dr. Anil Gupta, talking about the impact that this is going to happen, that it is going to have. Remember, immediately after that, we saw a cloud of dust. In fact, even now, we can see a bit of a dust in the air. How long is it going to take to settle? What is the impact it can have?
See, it's a very important point you have raised, but the weather is little favorable. Because we have moisture, good enough moisture in the air, and that will help lead to the increasing the weight of the particles, and that will accelerate the settling down. But yes, it will take some time. The final particles may remain in the air for a little longer time, maybe a few days, but the heavier particles will settle in maybe in a few hours. So that is about their quality, that will not be a very serious concern. But as I was listening to the updates, I think it requires a systemic, the need of a systemic assessment. Assessment also whether it had any kind of impact on the subsoil strata. So the stability of the ground or the subsoil ground, that's very important for future, and also for the subsoil profile of the nearby buildings, because broadly it looks everything safe, but there are smaller but critical issues that should not be avoided. One, I spoke about the subsoil strata, the stability of that. Second thing is various appliances being put at various households in the nearby buildings. So whether any kind of shocks have affected the electric fittings or the electric appliances. So people should be little careful about restarting those appliances or when the electricity is resumed. So the risk of fire, short circuits, these kind of things should be taken care of. Even for the gas connections also, before restoring the gas connections, it would be better if people look at it. So these are smaller but very important aspects. And then whether the nearby buildings generated any kind of cracks also. Yeah. Over to you.
Okay. All right. Mr. Vipul Ahuja, would you say that, there was a lot of precision planning that went into the destruction of the building, or to bring that down, raise it completely? But now as well, there's a big challenge because the debris has to be cleared to assess the kind of damage. Tell us what next.
Well, I think thorough audit of the surrounding buildings is warranted. Like the Indian speaker was saying, that the effect on the subsoil is very important, because the soil is continuous and common between the place where the debris fell, from an average height of probably 50 meters, I'm saying, some 100, some 0, to an average of 50 meters, 80,000 tons falling in one big slump. And that causes a very huge impact on the soil, and the vibrations cause almost a Richter magnitude 3 earthquake. But this is, we have to remember that this is at a very close proximity to the building, and not a very distant earthquake that we talk about. So I think that thorough audit which will involve, the non-destructive testing type of procedures to see whether critical elements are safe or not. There are any cracks noticed or anything, some visual assessments will be some technical other non-destructive techniques are there with instruments, whether those are there, whether cracks are micro cracks and what kind of damage has done. I'm hoping or presuming that some instrumentation actually should have or would have been done in the very adjacent buildings. There are, if not for the future, we should also consider this that the adjoining buildings, we can actually put in some sensoring devices and then sort of recreate that impact on a computer model, and then check whether what kind of damage is expected on those buildings. So this kind of and as maybe some more demolitions happen, if already not, this should be something that should be done in the future of instrumenting some of the existing surrounding immediate buildings, and then assessment becomes more accurate and complete. So I think that's an important learning also from here. Though this apparently this demolition went as planned, I'm sure that apparently there is no damage, no surrounding buildings have fallen. From this distance it's very difficult to say. But visually only we can say nothing is fallen. But the cracks and all, whether they've made it weaker for future earthquakes, that is what is the next challenge from our point of view, from the structural consulting community point of view. So,
okay, all right. Do stay on with us. Let's also play that report. My colleague Priyank getting us the details of that moment of that explosion.
The sound of the siren has just stopped because it went for around 3 minutes, starting from 2:27, because 2:30 is the timing. And as you can see, this building is falling. It's an epical visual which you are watching it on the viewers of Times Now. We are going to wear this mask because the smoke is going to be coming everywhere. The dust has suddenly covered this building. It has been an explosion which people have been waiting for around 200 to 300 meters. We can see that explosion has totally covered this particular area. This area was a no man's area. There was nothing which was left here. No sign of life was also made sure by the officials, and this building has brought its totally smoke, which has totally dust of the concrete particle as well as the particles of the concrete material and the iron which has been blasted. Finally, we cannot see that whether the adjacent towers have also been affected or not, but what we can see exactly that certainly the demolition appeared to be very straight. Till the last few nanoseconds I could observe this demolition was certainly a successful one as far as what we can see from the initial time. This area is totally covered with smoke. We have been instructed by the Noida authority officials that everyone who is in and around this area need to wear masks. What I can see, the adjacent building is safe. The ATS tower is safe, which is clearly visible through open eye. We cannot see any kind of, damage which has been caused to the ATS tower. We are still waiting to see that whether the Emerald Tower is also affected or not, but that is certainly not visible. So finally, this demolition drive has been carried out in Noida, which was the biggest event of this century, because this is the first time this event has been carried out in such a manner.
All right, so that was the moment as it unfolded, the entire structure being raised within exactly 9 seconds as planned, the entire building reduced to just a pile of rubble. Mr. Rajiv Nehru, we're talking about what next, as we spoke about the preparations that went into ensuring that everything went according to plan. It's also now going to be a task to ensure that we decide on what next, and that's also carried out with precision.
Sequence of events. One initial next is to reduce the dust as much as possible. Second is to slowly make way for debris to come out along with the traffic movement in that area. And the third next would be where do we put this debris? So much 55,000 tons of debris has to be put in a place where probably it is to be reused or somewhere recycled in a positive manner. And fourth important, which has to be done initially as a parallel, would be to check the damage to the geoplasters, to the foundations of nearby buildings. In fact, a lot of NDT, as others also said, non-destructive testing has to take place to check whether the buildings have suffered some minor cracks or some sort of aberration or some sort of soil depletion, or we can, in our language, we call it settlement. So we have to check. In fact, the checks have to be visual as well as non-destructive, and also we have to go for advanced methods like maybe X-ray diffraction to check the structural damage, if any. And of course, the other element is wherever the debris has gone beyond the boundary of the building. If you see the demolition, how it happened, the first building actually was pulled down a little earlier, and it pulled down the second building in the direction of the open area. So it was a very brilliantly planned sequence of demolition in a way that the first pulled the second in the direction it should have, and that helped actually now to make sure that the debris is in a very cordon of area where it can be easily pulled out. Of course, 2-3 months will take. It will take 2-3 months to do that. But now, and the fifth part is to clear the whole thing. Maybe some part is not demolished by the blasting. Some part will have to be demolished manually using some equipment and machinery on site and coming down to a level of the foundation. So these are the next steps I think need to be done now.
Okay.